On the corner of Maplewood Drive stood a house. Simple, quiet, unremarkable. But behind that little white picket fence was a garden so beautiful, so alive, it drew people in from blocks away. Children laughed there, butterflies danced, neighbors once stopped to smile, until the HOA decided it was a problem. They called it non-compliant. They called it an eyesore. And in one cold letter they demanded she tear it all down. Everyone thought she would give up. But what no one saw coming was how one woman's garden would grow into a storm the HOA would never forget. Her name was Sarah Miller, a retired schoolteacher, widowed, living quietly in the home she and her husband had bought decades earlier. After he passed, she found solace in the soil. Every flower she planted, every vine she trained, every rose that bloomed. It wasn't just a garden. It was a memory, a love story, growing in color. Her neighbors, at least most of them, adored it. Children plucked sunflowers on their way to school. Elderly couples walked slower past her home just to take it in. But then, there was the board. The HOA, a handful of people with clipboards and a lust for control. And for them, Sarah's garden was not beauty. It was a violation. First came the letters. Cold, printed warnings taped to her door. Your garden does not comply with neighborhood standards. Remove non-approved plants immediately. Sarah ignored them. She wasn't hurting anyone. But then came the fines. $50, $100, then more. And at the next community meeting, the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman named Linda, humiliated Sarah in front of the crowd. If we let her do this, Linda scoffed. What's next? Chickens in the front yard? Broken cars on the lawn? People chuckled. Sarah sat silent. Her garden, her sanctuary, reduced to a joke. And soon after, the final notice arrived. Tear it down, or we will. They thought the story would end there. But Sarah was only getting started. She tried appealing. She called the board. She wrote letters. No one listened. When the HOA sent contractors to rip out her roses, she stood in front of them. An old woman, frail but unyielding, telling them, "Over my dead body." But fines piled up. Court threats followed. And soon, Sarah was cornered. So she made a choice. Not to fight them in the way they expected, but to fight them in a way they could never see coming. Sarah had been a teacher, and teachers know how to study. So she studied every page of the HOA bylaws, every clause, every loophole. And what she found was a garden's worth of mistakes. The board had been violating its own rules, approving paint colors, without votes, fining people without due process, even misusing community funds. Sarah gathered evidence, receipts, testimonies, photographs. But she didn't stop there. She reached out to neighbors who had also suffered in silence. The man fined for parking his truck an inch too far. The family told their holiday decorations were too excessive. The widow ordered to remove her American flag. One by one, they came forward. And soon, Sarah wasn't standing alone. She had an army. The HOA wanted to tear down her garden. Instead, she was about to tear down the HOA. The showdown. 15-1-18. At the next community meeting, Linda and the board expected silence. They expected Sarah to finally cave. But when they opened the floor, Sarah stood, not trembling, not ashamed. She carried a folder thick with papers, her voice steady, clear. "You fined me for flowers," she began. "But here's what you've been hiding." One by one, she laid out the violations. The illegal votes, the embezzled funds, the board's own hypocrisy, members with unapproved decks, extensions, even gardens of their own. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts. Neighbors who once sat silent now demanding answers. Linda's face went pale. The smug smile vanished. And for the first time, it wasn't Sarah who looked small. It was them. Within weeks, the board collapsed. Linda resigned in disgrace. The HOA was restructured, investigations launched. And Sarah? Not only did she keep her garden, she was voted in as the new head of the board. The woman they tried to humiliate now held the power they once used against her. And her first act? She wrote a new rule. No garden that brings joy shall ever be torn down again. Today, Sarah's garden blooms brighter than ever. Children still stop to smile. Butterflies still dance, but now it stands for something more. It stands as proof that even the smallest, quietest person can rise against cruelty. That sometimes revenge doesn't look like anger. Sometimes it looks like flowers. And the garden they tried to destroy became the garden that destroyed them. What do you think of Sarah's story? Would you have fought back the way she did, or torn it down and walked away? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice always finds a way.